Commander Jake Sullivan stood near the large window of the Earth Defense Station Guardian. His eyes were fixed on the screen that showed the outer areas of the solar system. For 3 weeks, something strange had been happening. Every military expert in the Sol system was trying to understand what was going on. Lieutenant Amy Chen sat at her station. She looked up at Jake with worried eyes. "Another one just disappeared," she said. Her voice showed her confusion. "That makes 12 alien groups in the last 3 days." Jake walked closer to look at the information on the screen. The same thing happened every time. Alien fleets would come toward Earth. Their weapons were ready. They were prepared to fight. Then, somewhere between Mars and Earth, they would just vanish. There was no wreckage. There were no energy signals. There were no calls for help. Just empty space where the warships had been seconds before. "Show me where they were last seen," Jake said. The screen changed. It now showed 12 different spots spread across the routes to Earth. Each spot marked a place where an alien fleet had stopped existing. The Krell Dominion had sent ships. The Vaxxer Empire had sent ships. The Zelthan Confederacy had sent ships. 9 other hostile alien races had also sent their best warships toward the human homeworld. None of them had made it to Earth. Captain Linda Hayes walked into the command center. Her face looked serious. "I just finished a call with Earth Command. The Security Council is having an emergency meeting. Half of them think we built some secret weapon. The other half thinks this is a trick. What do you think?" Jake asked her. Linda looked at the screen for a long time. "I think something is keeping us safe. I'm not sure if that should make us feel better or worse." All across the solar system, people were having the same conversations on every human ship and station. The disappearances had started small. Single scout ships would vanish without any sign. Then bigger ships began to disappear. Now whole invasion fleets were being erased from space as they got close to Earth. On the moon at Armstrong Station, Colonel Pete Morrison looked at the tactical information with his officers. "We have checked every sensor. We have checked every satellite. We have checked every piece of equipment we have. There is no sign of any weapon being fired. There are no strange gravity readings. There are no space problems. These ships are just stopping to exist." Major Karen Wells spoke up. Could this be something natural? But her voice showed she did not believe that idea herself. 12 different alien races, Pete said, shaking his head, all using different engines. All vanishing the same way? That is not nature. Something is doing this on purpose. Back on the Guardian, Jake got an important message from Earth. The Joint Chiefs wanted a full report within 1 hour. They wanted answers that Jake did not have. "Pull up the messages from the vanished fleets," he told Amy. "Maybe they said something before they disappeared." Amy typed quickly on her control panel. Most of them went quiet before disappearing. But the Krell fleet sent something interesting. Their commander said he saw what he called shadow vessels before his message stopped. Shadow vessels? That is all we have. 3 seconds later, the whole fleet was gone. Jake felt cold fear move through his body. Humans had been exploring space for less than 200 years. They had met dozens of alien species. Most of them had better technology than humans. Wars had happened. Treaties had been signed. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy through hard work and clever thinking. But this was something new. Something that made even the most powerful alien empires disappear like smoke in the wind. "I want every telescope focused on the routes to Earth," Jake ordered. "I want every sensor watching. I want every station monitoring. The next time a hostile fleet comes close, I want to see exactly what happens to them." He did not have to wait long. 3 days later, the sensors picked up a huge fleet entering the solar system. The Draxian Armada was coming. This was one of the most feared military forces in the known galaxy. They arrived with clear bad intentions. 200 warships moved in perfect formation toward Earth. Each ship was strong enough to destroy a whole planet. This time humanity was ready to watch. Every sensor they had was pointed at the coming fleet. Observation posts throughout the solar system kept constant watch. Earth's defense forces got ready to fight, but everyone knew they had little chance against such a large enemy force. Jake watched the display screen. Amy and Linda stood beside him. The Draxian fleet had just passed Jupiter when the first strange thing appeared. "I have something," Amy said. Her voice was sharp with excitement and fear. "Energy readings are appearing around the Draxian formation. They do not match any engines we know." The screen showed new contacts appearing from nowhere. They looked like dark shapes on the sensors. They absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Shadow vessels, just like the Krell commander had said before he vanished. How many? Jake asked, still counting. 30, 40, 50? Sir, more keep appearing. There must be over 100 of them. The shadow vessels surrounded the Draxian armada in a perfect ball shape. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Draxian fleet started shooting. Plasma cannons fired. Missile batteries launched. Energy weapons lit up the space between Mars and Jupiter. The Draxian commander was not going to die without a fight. But something impossible happened. Every shot, every missile, every beam of energy just vanished before reaching the shadow vessels. They are not using shields, Linda said quietly. The weapons are just stopping to exist. The shadow vessels began to move. They did not speed up slowly like normal spacecraft. They just changed position instantly. They appeared in new spots around the Draxian fleet. The ball got tighter around the enemy ships. On Earth, in the command center deep under the Rocky Mountains, General Frank Carter watched the same thing happen on his screens. Next to him, Dr. Helen Brooks from the Advanced Research Division was recording everything. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Frank asked. Helen pushed her glasses up her nose. Her eyes stayed on the screen. "Something that should not be possible. Those vessels are working outside the normal rules of space and time. Can you explain more? Not without sounding crazy." The Draxian fleet tried to break apart and run in different directions. But the shadow vessels moved with them. Within seconds, the whole armada was trapped again. Then one by one, the Draxian warships began to disappear. It happened slowly enough that every sensor could see the process. The ships did not explode. They did not break apart. They just faded away as if reality itself was erasing them. Within 5 minutes, 200 of the galaxy's most powerful warships were gone. The shadow vessels stayed for a moment longer. They hung in space like dark holes in reality. Then they too vanished, leaving nothing but empty space and confused human watchers. Jake's hands were shaking. He turned to look at Linda. "Get me a communication line to every listening post we have. I want to know if anyone saw where those shadow vessels came from. I want to know where they went." Over the next few hours, reports came in from all across the solar system. The shadow vessels had appeared at the same time with no warning. They had left the same way. But one observation post on Europa reported something unusual. Lieutenant Chris Palmer had been watching deep space when the shadow vessels vanished. His sensors had caught a brief signal. It was an energy spike that seemed to come from Earth itself. "You are saying these things came from our planet?" Jake asked over the communication line. "I am saying the energy signal I found pointed back toward Earth," Chris said carefully. "But sir, there is nothing on Earth that could make that kind of power. Nothing we know about anyway." Jake ended the call. He stared at the image of Earth turning slowly in the center of the command deck. The human homeworld looked as peaceful and blue as it had for billions of years. "Something on our planet is protecting us," he said quietly. "Something we did not build. Something we do not control." "That is impossible," Amy said. "We have mapped every inch of Earth. If there was some old alien defense system, we would have found it." "Would we?" Linda asked. "If something wanted to hide on Earth, really hide, could we find it? What if the technology is too advanced for us to see?" The question hung in the air with no answer. On Earth, Dr. Helen Brooks was asking herself the same question. She sat in her lab. Around her were screens showing all the information about the shadow vessel encounter. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same impossible answer. Something very advanced had taken up residence on or around Earth. Something that thought humanity was worth protecting. But why? And more importantly, what would it want in return? Earth's scientific and military groups organized the largest investigation in human history. If something was protecting their planet, they needed to understand what it was and why it was doing this. Jake's team on the Guardian worked with research stations across the solar system. They collected every piece of information about the disappearances. Dr. Helen Brooks led a team of scientists. They looked through old records, searching for any clue they might have missed. "We need to think about this differently," Helen told her team at the Earth Command Research Building. "We have been thinking that if something advanced existed on Earth, it would be obvious. But what if it has been here all along, hiding where we cannot see it?" Dr. Nathan Price was a quantum physicist. He pulled up a series of energy readings on the screen. "I have been studying background radiation levels across the planet for the past 10 years. There are small changes in certain places. I always thought they were natural. But look at this." The screen showed a map of Earth. Dozens of points were marked on it. Each point marked a place where unusual energy signals had been found over the years. They are in a pattern, Helen said, breathing hard. They form a network around the planet. Could be a coincidence, Dr. Laura Martinez suggested, but she did not sound like she believed it. There is no such thing as coincidence with this level of accuracy, Nathan replied. These points are placed mathematically for the best global coverage. Whatever is making these signals has been watching the entire planet. Jake received this information aboard the Guardian. He felt both fascinated and afraid. Where are these locations exactly? Helen's face appeared on his screen. All over. Some are in empty areas. The Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, deep ocean trenches, but some are in big cities. There is one in New York, another in Tokyo, one in London, Paris, Sydney. They are everywhere. How long have they been there? That is the scary part. When we looked back through old records, we found similar energy changes going back hundreds of years, maybe longer. Whatever this is, it has been on Earth for a very long time. Captain Linda Hayes had been quietly looking at the information. Could these be watching stations? Places where some advanced civilization has been studying humanity? That is what we think, Helen said. But if that is true, why show themselves now? Why start protecting us now? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. A single alien ship entered the solar system. It sent a message of peace on all frequencies. Unlike the hostile fleets that had vanished, this ship made no aggressive moves. It just asked permission to come near Earth. Jake contacted Earth Command. We have an incoming ship. It is a Valdari design. They are asking to talk. General Frank Carter made the decision quickly. Let them come to Mars orbit, no closer. We will send people to meet them. The Valdari were an old species. They were respected throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and fairness. When their ship reached Mars, a small human shuttle left Armstrong Station. Colonel Pete Morrison and Dr. Helen Brooks were on board. The meeting happened on the Valdari ship. It was an elegant vessel that looked like it had been grown instead of built. The Valdari ambassador was a tall being with glowing skin and 3 eyes. The ambassador greeted them with clear relief. Thank you for seeing us, the ambassador said through a translation device. I am Ambassador Kalen. I have important information about the protectors of your world. Pete and Helen looked at each other. You know what is defending Earth? We do, and we must warn you. Humanity stands at a critical point. Kalen gestured for them to follow into a meeting room. What I am about to tell you will be hard to believe, but every word is true. They sat in chairs that changed shape to fit their bodies. Kalen settled across from them. All 3 eyes focused intensely on the humans. 10,000 years ago there was a war that destroyed galaxies and ended countless civilizations. The architects were a race of beings more advanced than anything you can imagine. They fought against the devourers. These were creatures that ate all life they found. The war ended with the architects winning, but the cost was terrible. Most of their kind died. What does this have to do with Earth? Helen asked. The surviving architects scattered across the universe. They hid, they recovered. Some chose to watch over promising young species, to protect them from the dangers of a hostile galaxy. Earth caught the attention of one such architect. It has been here, hidden and sleeping, for longer than your species has existed. Pete leaned forward. Why? Why would something that powerful care about humanity? Kalen's face was hard to read, but there seemed to be something like sympathy in those 3 eyes. Because you remind them of what they once were. Humans are young, aggressive, creative, and endlessly curious. You solve problems in ways that surprise older species. The architect saw potential in your kind, and now it is awake, Helen said quietly. Yes, the increased attacks on Earth from multiple alien empires triggered its defense systems. It has been removing threats to your homeworld one by one. But here is what you must understand. The architect is not doing this just to be kind. It is studying you, watching how you react, how you grow, how you face problems. We are an experiment, Pete said flatly. No, you are students. The architect is preparing humanity for something, though I do not know what. No one does. The architects keep their secrets. Helen's scientific mind filled with questions. Can we communicate with it? Study it? Learn from it? You can try, Kalen replied. But be warned, young ones. The architects operate on timescales that span thousands of years. They see patterns we cannot understand. If you seek to know your protector, you must be prepared for answers you may not like. The news from Ambassador Kalen changed everything. Earth's governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders talked about what this meant for their beliefs. Scientists argued about the best way to contact something beyond their understanding. Jake found himself at the center of the effort to make contact. Earth Command had chosen him to lead a team that would try to communicate with the architect. It was, everyone agreed, probably the most important mission in human history. Dr. Helen Brooks joined his team. So did linguist Dr. Paul Chen and xenobiologist Dr. Sarah Williams. A dozen other specialists also came. They set up a base at one of the energy signal locations. It was a site in the Arizona desert that had shown the strongest readings. "How do you say hello to a godlike alien?" Paul asked as they set up their equipment. "Very carefully," Jake replied. They started with radio messages. They sent signals in every language and format they could think of. Then they tried quantum signals and gravity waves. They even tried old-fashioned light signals. For 3 days, they got nothing back. On the 4th day, something changed. Sarah was watching the earthquake sensors when she noticed something odd. "I am getting unusual readings from below the ground. Something is moving down there, but it is not following any natural patterns." The ground in front of their base camp began to shimmer. The air itself seemed to ripple and bend. Then, without warning, something appeared. It looked like a ball of liquid metal. It was about 10 feet across. It floated 3 feet above the desert sand. Its surface moved constantly. It flowed and reformed in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Jake felt his instincts telling him to run. But he held his ground. "Is that it?" Amy whispered over the communication line from the Guardian. "Is that the architect?" "No," Helen breathed. Her instruments were going wild with readings. "I think that is how it is choosing to talk to us. An interface. A way to communicate." Jake stepped forward. His heart was pounding hard. "On behalf of humanity, we thank you for protecting our world. We wish to understand. We wish to learn." The sphere pulsed with light. Then, impossibly, it spoke. Not through sound, but directly into their minds. Every member of the team heard it at the same time. It spoke in their own internal voice. "Young ones, your curiosity is noted." The words carried weight beyond their meaning. Jake felt the presence of vast intelligence behind them. It was like standing at the edge of an ocean and seeing something enormous moving in the deep water. "Why are you protecting us?" he asked. "Because you have potential. Because your species faces a choice that will determine your place in the cosmos." "What choice?" "The choice all young species must make. Will you grow beyond your limitations, or will you destroy yourselves? Will you reach for the stars with open hands, or with closed fists ready to fight?" Helen found her voice. "You have been watching us for thousands of years?" "Yes, I have seen your wars, your creations, your victories and failures. You are chaotic, violent, brilliant, and kind in equal measure. You are worth preserving." "The hostile fleets," Jake said. "You destroyed them. I removed them from this reality. They threatened what I protect. They will not return." Paul stepped forward. His training in languages helped him overcome his fear. "Can you teach us? Help us advance?" The sphere pulsed again. Jake felt something like amusement in the response. "I already am. Every challenge you face makes you stronger. Every problem you solve without my help makes you better. I do not coddle. I protect only against threats you cannot yet handle. The rest, you must overcome yourselves." "How long will you stay with us?" Sarah asked. "Until you no longer need me. Until you can stand among the stars as equals to the ancient races. Until your potential is realized. And if we fail?" Jake had to ask. "If we destroy ourselves or become evil?" The sphere's surface became still for a moment. It became smooth like a mirror. In its reflection, Jake saw not himself, but humanity as a whole. Billions of faces, past, present, and future. Then I will mourn, and I will move on. Free will is the foundation of intelligence. I will not take that from you, not even to save you from yourselves. The weight of that statement settled over everyone present. They were protected but not controlled. Watched but not guided. The architect was a guardian, not a master. "What should we call you?" Helen asked. "I have had many names across many worlds. You may call me Sentinel if you require a name." Jake felt a pressure building in his mind. It was a sign that the communication was taking a toll on them. "Will you speak with us again?" "When necessary. When you ask the right questions. Grow, young ones. Surprise me." The sphere collapsed into itself and vanished. It left nothing but burned sand and a team of humans who would never see the universe the same way again. News of the contact spread across Earth and its colonies within hours. The existence of the Sentinel became public knowledge. Earth's governments carefully controlled how the information was released. They wanted to avoid panic. The response from humanity was as mixed and varied as the Sentinel had said they were. Some people welcomed the presence of a guardian. Others feared it as a form of control. Religious groups debated whether the Sentinel was an angel, a demon, or something beyond such simple ideas. But most people, after the first shock wore off, just went back to their lives. They had jobs to do, families to care for, dreams to chase. The presence of an ancient protector in the shadows changed the big picture. But daily life continued. Jake returned to the Guardian. He found his crew had become minor celebrities. Requests for interviews came in from every news agency in the solar system. He said no to all of them. Let the politicians and scientists handle the public, he told Linda, as they watched Earth turn on the observation deck. We have more important work to do. Figuring out what the Sentinel meant? She asked. Figuring out how to be worthy of its protection. Across the solar system, humanity began to change in small ways. The knowledge that they were being watched, tested, and protected by something ancient and powerful affected different people in different ways. On Mars, engineers worked harder to build good colonies. They were determined to prove that humanity could thrive beyond Earth. On Europa Station, scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding alien biology. They were driven by a new sense of purpose. Earth itself saw less fighting between nations. It was hard to argue over borders and resources when everyone knew they were part of a larger test. Wars did not end completely. Humans were still human. But fighting became less common and less destructive. Dr. Helen Brooks continued her research into the Sentinel. She mapped its energy signals and tried to understand its technology. She knew she would never fully understand it. But the attempt itself pushed human science forward in big leaps. We are reverse engineering gods, Nathan Price joked one day in the lab. We are trying to understand our teacher, Helen corrected. There is a difference. The Valdari and other peaceful alien species began to approach humanity with new interest. If the architects had chosen to protect Earth, maybe humanity was more important than they had thought before. Trade agreements started. Cultural exchanges increased. Humanity's position in the galaxy grew stronger. Not everyone was happy about this development. Some alien empires had lost fleets to the Sentinel. They were filled with anger and resentment. But they kept their distance. Even the most aggressive species understood that attacking Earth now would mean certain death. 6 months after the contact in Arizona, Jake received a private message from General Frank Carter. We are detecting unusual readings from the Sentinel's energy network. All the points around the planet are becoming more active. Jake felt his heart beat faster. Is something wrong? We do not think so. Dr. Brooks believes the Sentinel is expanding its network, making it stronger. It is adapting to protect against new threats we have, not even met yet. It is preparing for something, maybe. Or maybe it is just making sure we are safe while we learn how to protect ourselves. That night, Jake stood on the Guardian's observation deck. He looked down at Earth. Somewhere on that blue planet, hidden in ways humanity could not yet detect, an ancient being kept watch, not controlling them, not limiting them, just guarding them against threats too great to face alone. He thought about the Sentinel's words, about potential and choices, about becoming strong enough to stand among the ancient races as equals. We will get there, he said quietly to the stars. Give us time and we will surprise you. Far below, in a place beyond human perception, the Sentinel registered his words. In its own way that humans could not understand, it felt something that might have been satisfaction. The young ones were learning. They were growing. They faced their challenges with determination and creativity, and most importantly, they were beginning to understand. The protection was not meant to make them weak. It was not meant to make them dependent. It was meant to give them time, space to grow without being destroyed by forces they could not yet comprehend. How long that would take, even the Sentinel could not predict. Humans were unpredictable and chaotic, but they were also wonderfully surprising. They might reach their potential in decades, or it might take thousands of years. But the Sentinel was patient. It had waited for ages before. It could wait again. Months passed. Life continued. Humanity kept growing and learning. They made mistakes. They had victories. They argued among themselves about what the Sentinel's presence meant. But through it all, they kept moving forward. Dr. Helen Brooks made an important discovery in her lab one day. She had been studying the energy patterns from the Sentinel's network. She found something that made her call Jake immediately. "I think I understand how the Sentinel protects us," she said, her voice excited. "It is not using conventional weapons. It is using reality itself as a defense mechanism." Jake did not fully understand, but he listened carefully. "Explain it simply." "The Sentinel can manipulate the fabric of space-time. When those alien fleets disappeared, they were not destroyed. They were removed from our reality, pushed into another dimension or timeline. The Sentinel does not kill. It relocates threats. That is both terrifying and amazing," Jake said. "It gets better, or worse depending on how you look at it. The energy required to do this is beyond anything we can measure. The Sentinel must be tapping into forces we do not even have names for yet." Jake thought about this for a long moment. "So we are being protected by something that operates on a level we cannot even begin to understand." "Yes. But here is the interesting part. The Sentinel's network around Earth is not just defensive. It is also observational. Every node is collecting data, watching us, learning about us. Like a teacher watching students," Jake said, remembering the Sentinel's words. "Exactly. It wants to see how we develop naturally, how we solve problems, how we grow." This knowledge spread through the scientific community. It raised new questions. If the Sentinel was watching everything, what was it looking for? What would make it decide humanity had passed the test, or failed it? On Mars Colony 7, engineer Danny Foster was working on a new terraforming project. He was one of thousands of humans pushing the boundaries of what was possible. He did not think much about the Sentinel most days. He had work to do. But sometimes late at night when Mars's 2 small moons hung in the sky, he would look back toward Earth. He would wonder what ancient eyes were watching him. Watching all of them. And he would work a little harder, determined to prove that humanity deserved the protection it had been given. On Europa, Sarah Williams continued her research into alien life forms. She had made contact with several new species. Some were friendly. Some were neutral. All of them treated humanity with more respect now than they had before. "They see us differently now," she told her team one day. "Before we were just another young species trying to survive. Now we are the species protected by an architect. That means something in the galaxy." "Does it change who we are?" asked one of her assistants. "No," Sarah said firmly. "We are still the same people. We still have to earn our place in the universe. The Sentinel just made sure we would have time to do it." Back on Earth, children were growing up in a world that knew about the Sentinel. Teachers explained it in schools. It became part of human culture and understanding. Some children dreamed of one day meeting the Sentinel face to face. Others dreamed of becoming strong enough that humanity would no longer need protection. Jake received reports of all these developments. He watched humanity adapt to their new reality. Some things changed. Some things stayed the same. But overall, he saw a species that was growing stronger and more united. "We are doing well," Linda told him one day. "Crime rates are down across all colonies. Scientific progress is accelerating. International cooperation is at an all-time high. People want to prove they are worth protecting," Jake observed. "Or maybe people just feel safer knowing something is watching over us. Like children who behave better when their parents are home." Jake nodded slowly. "But we cannot stay children forever. Eventually we need to grow up. The Sentinel knows that. It is waiting for us to reach that point. How will we know when we get there? I do not know. But I think we will feel it. The galaxy will feel it." In orbit around Jupiter, a science vessel called the Discovery made an unexpected finding. They had been studying the gas giant's moons when their sensors picked up something strange, an energy signature that matched the Sentinel's network. The captain, a woman named Betty Cole, reported it immediately to Earth Command. "We have a Sentinel node out here. Far from Earth. What does that mean?" General Frank Carter consulted with Dr. Helen Brooks before answering. "It means the Sentinel's protection extends beyond Earth. It is watching over all of human space." This revelation brought both comfort and questions. How far did the Sentinel's protection reach? Would it protect human colonies on other worlds? Or was Earth special for some reason? Jake thought about these questions often. He had spent more time than anyone else in direct communication with the Sentinel. He felt a strange connection to it. Not friendship exactly, more like the connection between a student and a distant teacher. Sometimes, late at night, he would stand on the observation deck and speak aloud. He did not know if the sentinel could hear him, but it felt right to share his thoughts. "We are trying," he would say. "We are learning. We make mistakes, but we learn from them. We fight sometimes, but we also love. We destroy, but we also create. We are human. Flawed but determined." He never got a response, but somehow Jake felt that the sentinel heard him and approved. 1 year after the first contact with the sentinel, something unexpected happened. A new alien species arrived at the edge of the solar system. They were called the Korath. They were old, powerful, and known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom. Unlike the hostile fleets that had vanished, the Korath sent a single diplomatic vessel. They requested a meeting with human leaders. Jake was asked to represent Earth defense. Dr. Helen Brooks came as the scientific representative. General Frank Carter joined them via secure communication. The meeting took place on a neutral space station near Saturn. The Korath ambassador was an ancient being that looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body in patterns that seemed to carry meaning. "We have come to speak about the Sentinel," the ambassador said. Its voice was like wind chimes. "And about humanity's future." "What about our future?" Jake asked carefully. "The Sentinel has chosen to protect you. This is a great honor, but also a great responsibility. There are things you must understand about what this means." Helen leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overtaking her caution. "Please tell us." "The architects do not choose randomly," the Korath ambassador explained. "They look for species with certain qualities: creativity, adaptability, the ability to grow beyond their origins. You possess these qualities, but you also possess darkness, violence, the capacity for great destruction." "We know our flaws," Jake said. "Good. That self-awareness is important. The Sentinel is not protecting you because you are perfect. It is protecting you because you have the potential to become something greater. But potential can go either way. You could become a force for good in the galaxy, or you could become something terrible." "What do you think we will become?" General Carter asked over the communication line. The crystal being seemed to shimmer with thought. "That is not for us to decide, or even to predict. Humanity is young and unpredictable. You surprise us constantly. That is both your greatest strength and your most concerning trait." "Why are you telling us this?" Helen asked. "Because other species are watching you now, some with hope, some with fear. The fact that an architect chose to protect Earth has made you important on the galactic stage. How you handle that importance will shape the future of this entire region of space." The weight of those words settled over the humans. They had not asked for this responsibility, but it was theirs now. "What should we do?" Jake asked. "Grow, learn, make mistakes and learn from them. Honor the gift you have been given by becoming worthy of it. The Sentinel will not protect you forever. One day you will stand alone. When that day comes, who will you be?" The meeting ended shortly after. Jake, Helen, and Frank discussed what they had learned. "We are being judged," Frank said. "Not just by the Sentinel, but by the entire galaxy." "Then we need to be our best selves," Helen replied. "For humanity's sake and for everyone else's sake, too." Jake looked out at the stars. "The Sentinel bought us time. Now we need to use it wisely." Back on Earth, the governments held meetings. They discussed what the Korath had told them. Policies began to change. More resources went to education, to science, to space exploration, to solving the problems that had plagued humanity for generations. It was not a perfect transformation. Humans still argued, still fought, still made mistakes, but there was a new sense of purpose, a new understanding that they were part of something larger. Children in schools learned not just about Earth, but about their place in the cosmos. They learned about responsibility and potential, about the chance they had been given and what it meant. Jake continued his work on the Guardian. The station remained vigilant, watching for threats, but now they also watched for opportunities. Chances to help, to learn, to prove that humanity deserved its protection. One quiet evening, Jake stood on the observation deck alone. He looked down at Earth, the blue marble that held all of human history, all their triumphs and failures, all their hopes and dreams. "We will not let you down," he said quietly. He did not know if he was speaking to the Sentinel, to Earth, or to humanity itself. Maybe all three. Far below, in the depths of the planet, the Sentinel registered his words. It had been listening all along, watching, learning about these strange, chaotic, brilliant creatures it had chosen to protect. The Sentinel had protected many species over its long existence. Some had grown into greatness. Others had destroyed themselves despite its protection. Free will was a powerful thing. It could not be controlled, only guided. Humanity showed promise. They were violent, yes, but also kind. They were destructive, but also creative. They fought among themselves, but they also loved fiercely. They were a contradiction, a paradox, and that made them interesting. The Sentinel would continue to watch, continue to protect against threats they could not yet handle, but it would not interfere in their development. They needed to grow naturally to make their own choices to become what they would become. Time would tell if that would be enough. On Mars, Danny Foster finished his work for the day. The terraforming project was going well. In another 100 years, Mars might have a breathable atmosphere. Humanity was spreading among the stars, making new homes, reaching for their potential. On Europa, Sarah Williams made another breakthrough in understanding alien biology. She was building bridges between species, creating understanding where there had been only fear. On Earth, Helen Brooks continued her research. Every day brought new insights into the Sentinel and its technology. Every day pushed human science forward. And on the Guardian, Jake continued his watch, protecting Earth from threats, but also watching humanity grow, watching them learn, watching them become something more than they had been. Years passed, then decades. Humanity kept growing. They established new colonies, made new discoveries, formed alliances with alien species. Some of these aliens had once been enemies. Now they were friends. The Sentinel's protection became less necessary over time. Humanity's own defenses grew stronger. Their technology advanced. They learned how to handle threats that once would have destroyed them. But the Sentinel remained, watching, waiting, ready to step in if needed, but needing to step in less and less. Jake grew old. He retired from active service, but he never stopped watching the stars, never stopped wondering about the ancient being that had given humanity its chance. On his last day at the Guardian, he stood on the observation deck one final time. Linda was there, also retired now. Amy had moved on to command her own station. The crew had changed, but the mission remained the same. "Do you think we made it proud?" Linda asked, looking at Earth below. Jake smiled. "I think we are still making it proud. Every day we survive, every day we grow, every day we become a little bit better. That is what it wanted to see." "Do you think it will ever leave?" "Maybe, when we are ready to stand completely alone, when we do not need a guardian anymore." "Will we ever be ready for that?" Jake thought for a long moment. "I hope so, because that is when we will truly have reached our potential, when we can protect ourselves and help protect others, when we become guardians instead of the guarded." He looked out at the stars one last time. We were given a gift, time, safety, a chance to grow. Now it is up to us to honor that gift by becoming the best version of humanity we can be. Far below, the Sentinel heard these words, and in its own incomprehensible way it felt something that might have been hope. The young ones were learning. They were growing. The path ahead was still uncertain, but they were walking it with courage and determination, and that, the Sentinel knew, was all anyone could ask. The mystery of the disappearing alien fleets had been solved. An ancient protector had taken humanity under its wing, but the real mystery remained. What would humanity become? How would they use the time they had been given? That mystery was still unfolding, still being written. Every human, every day added a new page to the story, and the galaxy watched, waited, wondered, what would humanity become? Only time would tell, but for now they were safe, protected, given a chance to grow into their potential. The story of humanity among the stars was just beginning, and it was going to be magnificent.